Happy Thursday, socialites, and welcome to the best damn social club in the universe. I am your host, Jedi ASU, and thank you so much for spending a little bit of your Thursday night with me and my guest, Adam Green, as we talk about the only rivalry that counts, the Territorial Cup. So, as always, make sure you pour yourself a drink, sit back, relax, and let's get social. It is Thursday, the 10th of December in the year of our COVID 2020. Hopefully, you are doing well, taking care of yourself and especially those around you. I know the Rona is rather rampant. I have actually encountered 5 to 6 different people that have actually gotten infected with it recently. So, again, they were being cautious this entire time. Make sure you are cautious as well. But let's get back into this. Let's go ahead and talk about some football. Obviously, ASU basketball is playing San Diego State. That one is really close right now. But we're going to jump into this football conversation with my dear friend, Adam Green. How are you, my man?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm just happy to see you because I know we talked on Sunday, but we didn't get to talk and visit a lot throughout the pandemic. So I'm just happy we get to do a little bit today as well.
Yeah, like this whole pandemic thing is just like you want to check in on people that you care about, but there's so many people to check in on, and everyone's kind of in the whole thing. It's like I think until you hear otherwise, you kind of assume everyone's doing well.
That's my
But at the
dad's whole
same
thing.
time, like it's crazy out there. I know what were they like 8 months into this thing, almost 9 months
I
into it,
know.
and like fortunately, everyone on my side has either stayed healthy or
Good.
anyone who did get the virus has gotten through it, which is nice. But I know not everyone's been so lucky. So
Exactly. Exactly. I know that's my dad's attitude. No news is good news, which I appreciate that, right? But I mean, it's just like someone that I do the Sparky Pep rally, the day before games, and one of the one of the girls there on the alumni association, she just came down with COVID-19. Paige Denny, I don't know if you heard. She had it. She got it from
oh,
her
I didn't
mom.
know that. No.
Her and her dad both have it. So
Oh wow.
yeah, so she's
Hope they're
been
okay.
yeah, so she seems to be recovering well as always, and yeah, so it's always. I know there's been a few guys from work that have come down with it. I think there's 4 people that I know at work that have come down with it, and so it's just rampant. And so we were actually thinking about surprising my parents for Christmas, but now we're like,
Mhm.
let's see if we may not. So we shall
But that's
see.
why it's good we have things like this, where even if you're not
Exactly.
together, you can kind of be. It feels like it, right? I mean, you're talking to people, you're hanging out with your friends and everything, even if you're not in the same place. So, and at least now we
Yes.
have sports to talk about too.
And see,
So
that was the other thing too. Can you imagine if we had to do this back in the early '90s? I mean, I don't know how old you probably weren't very old enough, but there was no internet back then, so it's like
Well, I think like my fiance and we talk all the time. Like, well, we have talked about it. It's like, thank God we don't have kids. Like my brother and sister in law have kids. Like my niece just turned 6,
right,
and it's like that age. It's like, do they know what's going on? Can they handle this? Like
yeah,
splits. Like we're of all the people, like never like we talked about people who've gotten sick and everything. Like that's obviously the most important thing.
right,
But the secondary, it's like all the people with kids in school or young kids that aren't quite understanding what's going on. Like we're kind of like we're okay. Like we're like it could be a lot worse for like we're planning a wedding and everybody's like, oh, that that sucks because you don't know. I'm like, yeah, there's a lot of unknowns, but it's fine. Like we'll
exactly.
manage.
You're
Like as long as
able to
everyone
work
stays
through
healthy, we have enough stress as it is. Yes, planning a wedding. Well, I say we, she mostly,
that.
but it's like there's a lot of other people who have it a lot worse for a variety of different reasons than we do.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm lucky because the Padawans are all teenagers, so they're very self-sufficient. They go to bed late as hell, but they wake up. They take their first class from bed. I mean, they've never been absent. Their grades are through the roof. The teachers like them in class. I'm like, I have nothing to complain about. If Padawan 2 is going to be on PS4 for hours on end, his homework is getting done, his
Yeah.
grades are solid. I'm like, I can't complain. But if they were teeny tiny, I would be pulling my hair out. I would be pulling my hair out. But so shout out to everyone in the chat. Wes Franco, good to see you. Backyard barbecue paradise. Ron, love seeing you guys. Appreciate you being here. And as always, if you have questions for Adam, definitely please post them in the chat and we will talk about that. But as always, tomorrow is the game, right? A purely defeated, you know, lineup between both teams. And actually, I was talking with Shane Dale just a few moments ago, and I think the last time both teams came into a game, both defeated was 1937, and that instance it was because it was the first game of the season.
Yeah.
And so, and another one, Greg Hansen, as again, this is what Shane shared, that one of the teams played and they lost that first game, and then the other team hadn't. So that was 47. So
Okay.
it's been a while.
And this one's so different too because obviously, like if ASU had played all their games, I'm confident you guys would have won at least one game. You would have probably beat
Mm,
Colorado. They're not very
I
good,
don't know, man.
you
I
know.
bought that one. I bought Colorado early. After I saw them, I'm like, they're good.
But I think you guys like not all. At least in this case,
Okay.
not all zero-win teams are created equal. I was like Arizona's 0 for 4,
Okay.
ASU's 0 for 2. Like it's, I do think ASU would have a win if they had played their entire schedule.
Okay.
Like I'm not saying they'd have 2 or 3 wins, but they would not be winless. So like
Oh, I
it
see
does
what you're
add a
saying.
little bit of an extra. I don't know if it's fun or something to this game because like it's ridiculous, but it's like whoever. And I guess if there wasn't that game after that they're all supposed to play, which who knows if that'll even
Oh
happen.
yeah, that other
This
one
was the
exactly.
last game of the season. How much fun? Like how much fun would this be? Like whoever wins gets a win, and whoever loses finishes the 2020 season with a donut. Like even if ASU's 0-3, it's still a zero-win season.
It is,
You
right?
know,
And I don't even know when the last zero win season was for either team.
probably never.
Yeah, because I mean, it's everyone makes a big deal of UW going 0 and 12 back, I guess, in the early 2000s, but I've never heard of either team going 0 for.
Not in the modern era. It
Okay.
seems like, yeah. I mean, there might be, and Shane might have. If he didn't know it, then it probably never happened. Because I know Shane
Yeah,
knows
that's
everything
true.
about these teams. So like, even just like, the worst Arizona teams, and that's why everyone talks about the 11 game losing streak, which is a lot of fun. Don't get me wrong.
I understand.
It's great. But if there was a normal college football season, Arizona would have broken that losing streak. You know, they would have beaten
Okay.
Portland State. They would have beaten Hawaii probably to start the
Oh,
season. You know, and that's just the luck of the draw, if you will. And just because you beat those teams doesn't mean you're good. You know, they had the
okay.
last long losing streak, or a couple, not the last one because it happened with Rich Rod and Arizona beat ASU to end the season. It made no sense. But
Right.
the losing streak that got Mike Stoops fired, it wasn't really a losing streak. Like they lost their last, I think, 5 games in one season, then won a non-conference game to start the next year, then
Right.
lost like the next 5 after that. So it's like there was no long losing streak, but in terms of
Right.
competition, they lost to all the real teams. You know, for Arizona, they didn't have that cupcake to break this up. So
Right.
that's why it's hard to lose this many in a row, though.
It
Like
is. That's
because you usually play, if you're a Power Five school, you usually play some lower tier school that
some
maybe
D2
they
school.
beat you, but even the worst Arizona teams usually beat those teams.
Right, because it was always, I remember that was a Grambling State that came in, right? They struggled like the first half and then they broke away, but
Yeah.
at least they were having, they were able to. So I mean, that 11 loss streak, right? How as what is the chatter amongst the fans, right? Is it really everyone's ready to get rid of? I mean, I can imagine ASU Twitter with 11 straight losses, right? I think there would be a lot of calling, regardless of the pandemic, they'd be calling for the head of the coach, right? Is that still the same thing with Sumlin, or is there like, okay, it's a pandemic, it's not really not any
No,
of that?
that chatter was there even last year when it
Okay,
was 7 games. And I think there's some sense of when Kevin Sumlin was hired, it was weird because they came off a bowl season with Rich Rod. You know, he had Khalil Tate, who was on hand him the Heisman,
right,
you know, all that. And they were underwhelming in his first season.
yeah,
And they were in some games, and if they would have beaten ASU, if they wouldn't have choked that one away in the last week, Arizona finishes with 6 wins, which would have been the same number as ASU.
right.
Arizona goes to a bowl game, and the whole, I guess, perspective is different.
Oh, okay,
But they lost that game, and everybody's like, okay, that was weird. What happened to Khalil Tate? You missed a bowl game. You choked away the Territorial Cup.
right,
Then, of course, last season they got to a 4-1 start, and then the wheels came off.
yeah.
So at that point, like Kevin Sumlin really did not do anything to earn that goodwill with Arizona fans
Mm,
or Arizona people, just because he never like the honeymoon period wasn't there. Like
never
when
had a
you're an
chance.
ASU guy, ASU under Herm Edwards, they're not any better record wise than they were with Todd Graham. Like, isn't Herm just like two
Exactly.
games above 500? But
Yeah.
people like Herm because they went to bowl games the first couple of seasons. He has that. I mean, Herm's great. I like Herm a lot too.
Right.
But record wise, he's not really any better than anything else ASU has had, but it feels better,
Wait,
you know, and that makes a big difference.
Brad has tweeted that, right? And I think and I guess as some other writers have echoed that. It's like ASU may not be better record wise, but they are better. I'm like, I guess it's a feeling. I don't know, but it's like because it's always about wins and losses, right? I guess that
It should be.
exactly, and it's like everything else appears to be working in ASU's favor, but it's not yielding those results. But I guess Herm Edwards has some goodwill that I guess unfortunately Kevin Sumlin doesn't, and
No,
so and I mean I just remember that. I remember even Brad made a graphic, right? We Sumlin was supposed to be that new coach at ASU. He was the big shiny flashy one that was supposed to happen in it. And we ended up with Graham. And again, I guess that's the way it would have been. But my question was, I should have asked this of Shane, and I'm going to ask this of you. If the whole thing with Coach Rodriguez didn't go down and he still was the coach, where would Wildcat football be at now?
that is a really good question because obviously it's conjecture. You're kind of
Right.
hypothetically speaking, but that a lot of the complaints that they've had over the last couple of years is that Kevin Sumlin runs a different system than
Mm,
Rich Rodriguez in terms of the type of players he
right.
recruits. Kevin Sumlin wants bigger players along the offensive and defensive line. He wants bigger receivers, and they're slowly getting those guys into the program. Rich Rodriguez wasn't doing that. So to the
Right.
people that I think it goes along with that, there's a lot of people who think Kevin Sumlin, needs to be fired because he hasn't won. It's like, well, he's still trying to do it with a lot of Rich Rodriguez players
Mm,
or a lot of the issues that they had under Rich Rodriguez with recruiting.
right.
Like this is your senior class, as Rich Rodriguez guys. So would they be better off? Probably just because the players they have on their roster
Mm,
were meant for that system.
right.
But was that a program that was on the upswing? Probably not either, because they made a bowl game Rich Rod's last year. The year before that, they won 3 games. you know, so
Yeah.
it's like they peaked in that 2014 season with the Pac-12 South title, but they with Rich Rod they were decent always.
Hmm.
They were pretty much competitive. They would make bowl games. They weren't great in the Pac-12. They got beat badly by Washington State quite a bit, but they were competitive for the most part. And they won games. They just haven't done that under Kevin Sumlin. So I think if they kept Rich Rod, they would have been better the last couple of years. Maybe not better in a terms of like, okay, the program is in really good shape,
Okay.
but just the pieces would have fit.
So do you think people would have just still been looking for a reason to let him go, even though he was there in 18?
I mean, if say they beat ASU in 18, which I mean they probably I'll say they should have anyway.
Right.
Like if they do that, then people aren't looking to get rid of Rich Rodriguez. I don't
Okay.
remember people angling to fire him to begin with.
Yeah, there
It's
wasn't.
like
There was a big assumption that he was going to
yeah,
be there, and it wasn't until whatever the news was, or whatever it was, or wasn't. I don't know if that was or wasn't proven, given the accusations. But it was like it was enough for them to let him go.
yeah, with that and the record obviously wasn't amazing. The program wasn't doing great, but it was doing better than obviously it has been, and really better than it has in a long time in terms
Right.
of just consistently making bowls. And granted, they would beat up on a soft non-conference, win a few Pac-12 games, and they'd make a bowl game. But what Arizona fans wouldn't give to have that right now. like
Exactly.
when I said earlier, like Herm Edwards is like 2 games above 500. I didn't mean that as an insult so much as like, yeah, Arizona would take that in a heartbeat right
Right.
now. But it's like, how do you judge the health of a program? I don't think people looked at Arizona under Rich Rod in 2017 and said that program is in great shape. Other than like Khalil Tate was amazing
Oh, I
for
see what you're
a
saying.
4 week or 5 week stretch. But I think when they hired someone, it was kind of like, okay, here's a guy that A&M wasn't amazing, but they were still winning 8 games a year,
Yeah.
and this was the hot coach again, like you mentioned, the guy ASU was supposed to hire back in 2011 or something.
Right.
So there was buzz, and it just didn't last.
Yeah, and he had the buzz, and he came in with, and it's just, yeah, it's and like you were saying, I think it was interesting you shared that he's looking to recruit guys that are bigger in the trenches on both sides of the ball, and that's exactly what ASU's doing. But it's not something that you just flip a switch and you find the largest humans possible, and then they show up at your door, right? You have to be able to, and ASU is learning that now, right? Even though it's the third year, it doesn't happen even though you're trying to get everyone you possibly can. And so I guess it's like it doesn't seem like they're going to let Sumlin go. I don't even know if Arizona can afford
Well,
to let him
that's
go.
it right there. The rumors were they would have moved on from him last year if they had the money,
Mm,
and that Dave Hickey, the athletic director, is not exactly the most popular and doesn't seem to be the most effective fundraiser. And especially now in
right.
COVID times, the buyouts and everything, like it'd be hard to justify for a lot of people when there's no money. Like they had to lay people off and
Mm,
furlough people because they don't have the budget in the athletic department to
right.
say we're going to pay Kevin someone to go away and then bring in someone else. You know?
Are they still
And that's
paying?
not a reason not to do it.
Of
Like,
course.
but like if they don't have the money, they don't have the money.
And are they still paying Rodriguez as well?
I believe so. I
Wow.
believe so because they decided to fire him without cause, which, given the circumstances that they announced at the time, it seems like that would have been
It did
cause.
sound like it, but
Like, so they made it seem like they let him go because they fired him because of performance, which didn't make a lot of
uh,
sense. So, like, it was. I think there have been some missteps in the athletic department. We'll say that, but obviously, no one could have anticipated COVID. You know, and
no,
what
of course.
financial shortfall this has led to. So, like, it's weird because would they fire someone if they had the money to? Probably.
Oh yeah,
Like, it wouldn't be it'd be understandable. No one'd be
South
like,
Carolina did it.
yeah, like if you have the money, obviously an 11 game losing streak, even if it ends tomorrow,
Right.
like it's still a long losing streak. Like it would make sense, but they don't necessarily have the money to do it, which means you have to weigh the okay, well, the money that it would cost you right now versus the money, say the world is regular, normal next season, are fans showing up to watch this team?
Yeah.
Do you lose money that way? So I wouldn't want to have to make that decision. But if
Okay.
it was just performance based, I imagine it would have been done at some point this year, if not at the end of last season.
Right. But do you think obviously the Territorial Cup is very important to both fan bases, right? Do you think that a win tomorrow will kind of wash away that 11 game losing streak, or will it just give him some love?
It shouldn't wash it away.
Okay.
And like, if I think if they've made a decision, and I think there's something on coming out for AZ Desert Storm. Maybe we wrote a thing for that earlier in the week.
Mhm.
Was that like if you're going to fire Kevin Sumlin, the decision should have already been made.
Okay.
Like maybe you're not going to do it yet because there's still another game left, but you've made that decision. And
All
just if you're
right.
going to keep him, nothing that happens Friday, save for losing by 50 points, should change that.
Okay.
Because the previous 2+ seasons already happened. You have enough of a body of work. You've seen the recruiting classes. You've seen what he's doing.
Right.
And yeah, it'd be nice to beat a HSU, of course. No
Right.
one's
As
going to complain
always.
about that. And the 2016, when that was the win to end the season, no, people remember that game. Didn't
Right.
throw a pass in the second half. But it doesn't mean it was a good season in reality, not in terms of judging the program.
Okay.
Like
I see what
fans
you're
might
saying.
say, yeah, that was cool, that was nice, that's what matters. But you can't think that way if you're the athletic department. If you're
Okay.
Dave Heeke, if you're Robert Robbins, Dr. Robbins, you can't think of it that way. So
Right.
the win would be really nice and be great for the players they've been playing hard, they've been working hard. Like they deserve a chance to walk off the field winners. But if that happens, I don't think that would be a reason to keep someone.
Yeah.
Like that wouldn't make sense to me, and I would hope that's not the direction they're taking.
Okay. That's fair. No, because I mean, it's just the winning the cup is huge, right? But again, like you said, it's not necessarily a big picture changer, right? It's just you're up to you're it's one stroke in the overall larger picture,
Todd Graham was fired after winning the Territorial Cup.
and beating a ranked Washington. So
Yeah,
yeah,
like that. Like one game, it's a huge game for the fans, but does it tell you anything about your program?
yeah,
Like probably not. Like how often has it been a game between two really good teams? Like 2014 was that rare time they
I
were
think
both
that's what
ranked
it
and it was further
was.
south. But other than that, like tomorrow is what appears to be a bad Arizona team playing who knows ASU team,
Hapless.
and someone's going to win.
You're right.
But does that mean like if Arizona wins that game, does that mean like maybe just ASU wasn't as good as people thought? It doesn't mean Arizona's turned a corner. It
Okay.
doesn't mean that the previous 11 games don't matter. Like that all happened.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm not saying they should fire Kevin Sum. I'm just saying like I think the decision has to have been made already. Like as we record this show Thursday night, I'd hope whatever the decision is to keep him or to can him has already been
It's already
made,
been made.
independent of what happens in the game. Yeah.
Exactly. And so, given that, right? Again, given that they have that decision and whatever else, however, it's separate of it, whether it impacts the season or not, right? Arizona is 0-4, right? What is it that's given them the 0-4 record, right? Is it because it's just who they've played? Has it been injuries? What do
I
you
do think it's kind of a combination of things.
Okay.
And like I wrote for AZ Desert Storm before they played UCLA about the losing streak. And I'm just like, well, it's the first time, like the first best chance to end it.
Okay.
Because if you look at their schedule this season, like they're supposed to start off at Utah, who
Right.
they look pretty beatable, especially in week one. Utah had COVID issues, it didn't happen.
Yes.
So Arizona's first game was a home game against USC that they had the lead in the final
They
couple
did.
minutes. They could have won that game.
They
You could
could
argue
have.
they should have won that game.
Yeah.
But then they go to Washington, who like that wasn't a game anyone expected them to win.
Right.
So their first two losses were games that no one thought they were going to win.
Okay.
Like if you looked at the schedule, you're like, well, they're not going to beat USC. They're not going to win
Not
at
going to beat
Washington.
UW.
So then it's like, okay, at UCLA, UCLA is beatable. Well, you lose Grant Gunnell on the first play of the game.
Mm.
Then you come home to play Colorado, who we may disagree on this. I don't think Colorado is very good.
Okay.
I think they're like the worst 4-0 team in the country. Arizona even had a lead in that game. They're up 13-0 against Colorado.
Right.
They
I
just didn't
remember.
have enough with their true freshman quarterback. So what's the Commanders like? They've been in 3 of their 4 games. They had a
Okay.
chance to beat USC. They were up against Colorado. They were down by a score in the fourth quarter in the red zone, like within the 5-yard line.
Right.
UCLA, they were down 10. They had a chance to go get within 7 with 10 minutes left. They were in all 3 of those games, but for one reason or another, they didn't win. So, like, I do think, like, that's not to say Arizona's better than their record. I'm not going to argue that.
Okay.
But, like, they were in the game against Colorado, and I think if Grant Gunnell plays, they beat Colorado. They were in the game against UCLA. Now, granted, that was UCLA with their backup quarterback with Chase Griffin.
Right.
But I think if Grant Gunnell plays that entire game, I think they could beat UCLA. And, of course, USC, they almost beat with Grant
They did.
Gunnell.
Absolutely.
So now the problem with that is Arizona's offensive line has been really bad, especially pass blocking.
Really?
Like, there's a reason Grant Gunnell got hurt, and it's not because of a fluke. Like,
okay.
He's taken a beating, and so is Will Plummer back there. But that's how I look at their record. Like they're not better than 0-4, but like they're not that far away from being 1-3.
Okay.
Like,
Yeah.
2-2.
Exactly.
It's just part schedule, part just fluky injuries, but I think that's where I'd put it.
Now with Grant Gunnell, is he like Dorian Thompson Robinson, where he's super mobile and can throw? No. Okay.
No, I mean he's more mobile than you'd think. He's more Brock Osweiler than he
Okay.
is Dorian Thompson Robinson.
Gotcha.
Like mobile enough, can move around the pocket. USC didn't pay attention to him, and he ran all over them in the Arizona's first game of the season. Where USC put a spy on him in the second half. They shut that down.
Exactly.
But he's a big pocket passer. He's more likely just to stand in the pocket, take the shot, and get rid of the football.
Okay.
That's what he wants to do. But he can move if he needs to. Will Plummer, the true freshman, is more of a runner, more of a gunslinger back there, a little bit less accurate, less careful with the football. But I guess I want to say more athletic, but like he's more willing to use his athleticism to evade the pass rush and run a little bit.
So then, do we know who's starting tomorrow, or are they tight-lipped about it?
They're definitely tight-lipped. Last week, before the Colorado game, which was 3 days, I think, after Gunnell got hurt, someone said that he wants to play, but they're going to take it easy and do what's best for him. And then people kept asking him, of course they would. And he's just like, this is college. I don't have to tell you. Like, well, that's
it.
But then we found out after the game that the team found out that Will Plummer was starting on Monday of the week. So,
so everyone
they're
knew.
all lying to us for gamesmanship. Of course, if you can do that, make them try to prepare for 2 quarterbacks.
Exactly.
The interesting thing with Gunnell is like I've read that it sounds like he's more likely to play than we'd think. Because it's like he didn't have any structural damage, is what it was reported, which seems really weird because like he gets crushed, lands on the shoulder, misses a game, and no structure. Like just a bruise, a sprain.
Interesting.
And with I guess a week off, could that have healed his shoulder enough?
And no.
Like we don't know. Like it's. I wish we did, but they're not going to tell anyone.
Then that's not going to tell anyone.
But assuming Gunnell got back on the practice field some this week, I would guess that he starts.
Exactly.
But that's the thing. It's a short week. He needed to practice some.
Yeah, at least some sort of, because that's kind of what we were learning about this is my 3rd Zoom call today, but in my first Zoom call, it was the ASU only had 3 practices against UCLA. So at least they're going to have more against Arizona, and at least, Arizona's had a number of practices as well, so at least they have the entire week to figure it out. But that'll be, and now hold on, I need to know who this is. The offensive coordinator at Arizona was the former coordinator at ASU, and it's Noel Mazzoni.
Yep.
It took me enough to those neurons finally connected. So
again, those memories of those swing passes.
That's exactly it.
Back to you, right?
That was it. So again, like to that point, right? Is that's what you're saying? Is that I guess that's why it works so well for Grant Gunnell to be able to be that mobile, not super mobile, but be able to do the swing pass and walk around. Because again, that's what the Noel Mazzoni offense allows a quarterback like that to do.
Yeah,
but
that's the tough part, though.
Okay,
because Gunnell came to Arizona because of Noel Mazzoni. He wanted to play for him,
Okay.
And that's why all last season was kind of weird because, like, oh, well, you got this perfect quarterback for the system, and you're trying to make Khalil Tate fit in. And they started Gunnell a handful of games and
Right.
everything. And he looked decent. He looked like a freshman, but he looked like a good freshman.
Right.
Pro Football Focus thought he was great. you
They
know?
still do.
Yeah. So, and then he comes into this season. His first game, his second pass of the season was an interception.
Yeah.
And from there, he was lights out against USC. And then against Washington, just under duress the entire game. The whole offense was bad.
Yeah,
But
they
the
just
fourth
getting
quarter,
after him.
Gunnell put up some stats, threw a few touchdown passes. And you're like, okay, like we still don't know who Grant Gunnell is.
Interesting.
Like how much of a fit he is for this offense. Like he hasn't started that many games.
Right.
Started fewer games than Jaden Daniels has as a
Wow.
college quarterback.
Right,
So
because he started only like mid-season last year.
yeah, like Gunnell started, I want to say like 4 games last season, three
Okay.
or 4 games, appeared in a couple others. So it's like we're still learning about him in terms of how good he is. And we've seen all of 2 games in one play,
Yeah.
as the full time starting quarterback. So like he's supposed to be a better fit for Noel Mazzoni's offense. Like, and I believe it, because
Okay.
Goodell is accurate, doesn't have a cannon for an arm, but he has a good arm. He takes
Right.
care of the football, so he does all those things, but does it translate to wins? Like it hasn't so far, not this season.
Exactly.
But think of the teams that he went up against.
Yeah, and that's actually crazy how you share that as well because the offensive line that was always a an issue under the Erickson Mazzoni years back in the early 2010s, right? It's like that offensive line would sometimes just get ripped during a game. So it's just interesting how it's almost an interesting parallel for you guys as well.
When it's not supposed to be. Like the offensive line was supposed to be a strength this season. They brought back everybody from last season.
Okay.
They had Jordan Morgan, he was a sophomore this year, but he was supposed to be their left tackle, and he was a
Right.
guy that USC tried to poach before signing
Oh,
day. So they
really?
really liked him. He's mobile. He's talented, big kid. He's hurt right now. He hurt his ankle, I think, and he
Uh
missed the last game against Colorado.
okay.
But the offensive line was supposed to be a strength going into the season. You're like, okay, like that was the thing you weren't realize. Like, they'll give Goodell time if he's good. They got good receivers. They got good running backs. They'll put up points.
Right.
And pretty much from game one, the offensive line has been just a mess.
Mm.
They've tried to rotate different guys in there. They played walk-ons. They're trying to find
Really?
something.
Oh
They
my
don't have a lot of.
goodness.
They don't have a lot of actual scholarship players anymore.
Is that because just everyone opted out, or is that because just depth at the position?
A little bit of everything.
Okay.
Like the opt-outs haven't really affected them on the offensive line. They had one player who was a starter, Barola, who
Oh
had
yeah,
some.
he
He
got
had an
some.
interesting offseason.
He did. That's right.
So that's one guy who they don't have to help out there.
Okay.
But it's weird because they haven't had too many opt outs. They had veteran guys, so it's not like they needed their freshman class to come in and play well off on the
Like
offensive
yeah,
line.
like ASU
Just
last year.
something hasn't worked.
Hmm.
Maybe it's not having a Khalil Tate back there, but a lot of people not having Khalil Tate back there made it harder on the offensive line.
Right.
Because like you have to block differently. He's rolling out and scrambling and all that. So it's the biggest disappointment, the biggest surprise disappointment on the team. And obviously, anyone who knows football, if your offensive line can't block,
Yeah.
that it just ruins everything else for you. So
Absolutely.
but even then, like they put up enough points against USC.
They did.
Washington, they put up points on their second string, but the two most winnable games they had, UCLA and Colorado, Gunnell didn't even play in.
Right.
So it's hard to tell exactly what they could be, just because they haven't had everything, against an opponent that's more, I guess, closer to their level.
Yeah, and that's what happened with the UW game, right? Then it was a bunch of garbage time
Mm-hmm.
touchdowns in the fourth. Because I remember, I don't know what other game was going on. I think it may have been the Hawaii game. I think I switched over from that one. I started paying attention to that one. Then I checked your score, and I'm like, 27 points. How'd that happen? But it was all again, like you said, the second string.
Mm-hmm.
And again, my dad didn't even finish the game. I think he went to sleep.
That was a good decision. I stayed up for the whole thing, but and you see, like, granted, he's thrown up against second stringers, but he's throwing dimes. Like,
Yeah,
does that translate to anything? Does it mean anything? Like,
yeah,
you give him time to throw, he can throw accurately. Like, I mean, that's a positive development, sure.
exactly.
But if you can't give him time to do that, then it doesn't matter,
Yeah,
right?
it's a
And
game
that's
situation, but it's a
yeah.
lowered game situation.
And the first play of the next game, UCLA brought a blitz. The line didn't pick it up, and I think it was a linebacker had a clean shot at Gunnell
And
and
that
just
was
drilled
it.
him, and he was hurt.
That was it.
And that's Will Plummer's been under duress his 2 starts too, because teams know that Arizona's offensive line gets confused. They struggle. Like that's something I fully expect ASU. I know. I think Brad Denny had a thing about how ASU has been getting pressure with just their defensive line.
Yes.
He tweeted about that, which is like, okay, you're not even having to blitz to get pressure. Well, that's bad. That's bad news for Arizona, who struggles against pretty much all kinds of defensive fronts, blitzes, 4-man rush, whatever it is. They've had their issues.
Which is fantastic for ASU fans because most likely when we watch the game, they're not going to pressure. They're just going to kind of like wait. They're not going to do anything. Like it's like, and that's the other thing too, right? It's like they're not going to do what we're supposed to be doing against an opponent. We're like, let's try something new. Let's be a little experimental. But but how is ASU's? I'm sorry. How's Arizona's defense now? Because I mean, they're letting a lot of team. Allowing a lot of points. But I mean, it one person had 300 yards rushing
It
from
was
Colorado.
Broussard, yeah,
It was
and those
him.
300
Okay.
yards mostly came on like 5 runs,
Ugh.
which it's not really a positive when you say, if he had 20 carries, 15 of them went for 2 yards or less.
Right.
The other 5 went for 50 yards or
It's like,
more. But
Jamar
that's
Jefferson did that to us.
yeah.
He's like, yeah, he just gashed us. Now, if it wasn't for Eno Benjamin outpacing him by like 10 yards, then we would have been the laughing stock. But like you said, 300 yards off huge explosive plays. So is that something that again the Arizona defense is giving up?
Let's say they gave up a couple hundred yards to Felton the week before, so that
Oh,
there's a bit of a trend there. But and even the Arizona players they're talking about, like I think Aaron Blackwell, the defensive lineman, he's like, yeah, we basically stopped him for all but like 4 or 5 plays. It's like that's true, but if you give up a 60-yard
oh,
run, then it doesn't matter if the previous
yeah.
couple runs were for 2 yards. But that's you say, okay, if you limit the big play, then your defensive line was pretty good.
Okay.
But then why did the big play happen? Who wasn't in their gap? Who got beat off the
Oh,
line?
I see what you're saying.
Like those things happen. Their defensive line is better
Okay.
than you'd think. They have a couple of grad transfers. Roy Lopez and Aaron Blackwell
Okay.
came over. And Lopez especially has been really good. They got
Cool.
Javon Mason, who's a big space eater, makes some plays in the backfield. It's like the defensive line isn't bad,
Okay.
but where Arizona really struggles is that linebacker, which is
Mm,
where they had 2 guys transfer in the offseason, Tony Fields and Colin Schooler. Their
right.
2 best line transferred. And I remember with Wildcat Radio, we were doing our offseason kind of like our position
Right.
group preview. And we're like, oh, the linebacker's great because you have Colin Schooler as senior, Tony Fields as senior. They've both been productive. Anthony
Right.
Pandy can step in and be that third linebacker. And like you have a really good group of linebackers, veteran linebackers who are talented. Then you lose 2 of them.
The
And
number
now
two,
they're turning guys like
number one
Rourke
and two.
Freeberg, who, yeah. So like Rourke Freeberg's a walk on. He's not even a scholarship player. He's been a starting linebacker
Wow.
since week 1. He's made some plays in the backfield. Like he's been better than you would expect,
Okay.
better than you probably hope, but also you'd like to have Colin Schooler. You'd like to have Tony
Absolutely.
Fields. And I feel like with those guys as linebackers, with the defensive line they have now, that front 7, like what they have in the box is above average,
Okay.
but they don't have those linebackers.
And
So
this,
it's just a numbers thing for Arizona. They brought some linebackers in the recruiting class, but they're young. One
yeah.
ruptured his Achilles in the offseason, Jabbar Triplett.
Oh, wow.
Derek Morning's young. So it's like they don't have the numbers.
How about the secondary then?
Similar situation, secondary. I like their corners. Christian Roland Wallace is a good second-year corner.
Okay.
He's a guy who, if he would have timed his jump just slightly better, would have probably had 2 interceptions against USC.
Okay.
He's the one who had the one go off his fingertips in the last minute that
Yes.
went to St. Brown for like
And then
18
he
yards.
caught it. Exactly.
Yeah. Whereas like
It's
if
like,
Roland Wallace catches that ball, the game's probably over. Arizona wins.
exactly.
Like he's right there. He's been in position to make plays. Lorenzo Burns, a senior, he's been very good.
Right.
I mean, he's solid. Safeties, they have trouble with. They had
Mm.
transfers there. They've had injuries. They just don't have the numbers there either. Like when you're starting walk-ons, or like Reddy Short was I think a 3-star recruit, but
Wow.
probably a special teams type of guy. Just they have players who they have to play.
Yeah.
Like I don't have the depth chart in front, but last week against Colorado, they had 55 scholarship players active for the game
Wow.
due to
Just barely.
opt-outs, injuries, and what have you. And I think 53 is the minimum
Mm-hmm.
to let you play with. Arizona had an offensive lineman, a scholarship lineman, decide to transfer over the past week.
Ugh.
So if they don't get some guys healthy, they're bumping up against that. So like, I mean, it's just numbers, right? Like
Okay.
Arizona they have a couple of good corners. They have some good defensive linemen. They have maybe 1.5 or 2, pretty good linebackers, but you need more than that.
Got
So
it.
in the run game, guys get worn down. Like that big play happens because guys are just beat.
Yeah, exactly. They're like, you can't do this over and over and over. You're exhausted.
Yeah.
So is that, so it sounds like, and again, that seems to be the way to go, is to just pound the rock. Just
If
go
you can
ahead.
do it, that's football, right? Like
Yeah.
if you don't have to throw, don't. Like how many passes a day did you throw last year in the second half? I want to say it was like 3 or 4.
It wasn't a ton.
Yeah, it was like hardly any. It was just Benjamin running all over the place and blocking people 15 yards out of bounds without a
Yeah,
penalty being called.
yeah,
Like that's all I remember from last night.
exactly. It's right all the way into the bench itself.
Yeah,
Yeah, because I
like
don't
if you
think
can do
Nikhil
it, then
had.
do it.
Yeah, because I don't even think Nikhil had a touchdown the second half. It was all run.
Yeah, like all. I mean, if you can do that, then why wouldn't you? Like
Yeah,
even if you really like your quarterback, don't put the ball in the air. Just run it.
and I think that's the whole thing too. Because again, I guess if that's the thing that if Arizona is not up for pounding the rock again, congrats Sun Devil fans. We're probably going to throw it a bajillion times tomorrow, just because again, it's defies logic to just stick to the run, and it's like that would be the way to go. But unfortunately, that's not what's going to happen for us.
I would think you would. I know you got those two running backs who have been pretty. And maybe
Yes.
for an ASU, I can try to spin this interview on you. Is like, what do you guys know about ASU? Because obviously, 2 games is not enough of a. It's not enough sample
Right.
size to really know who a team is. But I guess the early returns in both games, your running backs have been very good,
That's
and
it.
Jaden Daniels has been spotty.
Exactly. And I think that's the thing, right? If of everything that doesn't have rust, it's the running backs, right? You got Trip Trainum and you got Rashad White. Those are the two. They were just a revelation against USC. Rashad White had a run to the outside on the far side of the field and outran 3 USC defenders. I mean, it was Keystone Cops. They couldn't catch him and he got a touchdown. So it was just even against UCLA, that's what was working. And during that last drive, they abandoned it. They
Yeah.
are running. I think you heard that when we were with Youssef. Our running backs are averaging like 7.5 yards a run. Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you be doing that instead of? And again, I guess they're just trying to give Jaden his reps, getting these new incredibly young receivers some reps and everything else. But I think it's just again, maybe the coaching staff is looking at it all as a big scrimmage, right? And whether we lose or not, it's not a big deal as long as everyone, is able to get something and get some game time vibe. But hopefully everyone sees tomorrow's game differently.
Just say if you guys want to make it a little league game where everyone gets in the game and goes runs to the snack bar afterwards tomorrow, that's great for Arizona. But
Bring
no,
the orange slices.
yeah, there's not much of a. It's not a difficult game plan when you look at Arizona. Like they're 0-4 for a reason. But until they prove they can stop the run, why wouldn't you just do that? Especially if it's ASU's strength. Like
Right.
I understand that you like the young receivers and you like the young quarterback, but like your coach, I remember saying something about playing to win a game or
Something
something.
like that.
Like right now the most simple strategy is to run the ball.
Run it down their throat. Yeah, and that was the whole thing. And again, like I said, I'm not sure why. I don't know why coordinators try to get cute or fancy or whatever else it is. I don't understand. I'm a know nothing. All I know is that I can see from the TV that the running the ball works. So why not do it?
Do
But
more of that, please.
yes, that's it. Just run the ball. That's all. That's my favorite tweet. Give me the runs. Just go.
Like
Just
those plays that work. Do more of
yes,
those.
that's all you need to do. Don't even. Although there was a trick play that ASU did towards the end of the fourth in the fourth quarter, and it worked out beautifully, which I love seeing because I expected that something like that from Zach Hill from Boise State to bring something like that. But again, it was this phantom ineligible receiver downfield or whatever it
Oh
was.
yeah, I saw you guys were upset about a bunch of those.
There was four of them in the
That's a
game.
lot.
How they're calling that, I don't know, or whatever it is. I mean, I don't understand the penalty as it is, so maybe that's why I shouldn't be opening my mouth on
But they're
it.
they're also Pac-12 refs, so they probably got it wrong.
Which is just so fantastically horrific that we still haven't figured that nonsense out. However many years I've lost count how many years they've been horrific.
Well, I'm still hung up on that one, the punt return for a touchdown a few territorial cups ago. That was a block on the side and the shoulder, and the refs call it a block on the back.
I remember that.
And
That
Arizona was pinned like in their 10-yard line. They would have taken the lead, and then they like went 3 and out because they were just and that was the end of the game.
was that
But I'm still
17?
hung up on that one, so I get it.
Was that 17 or was that
I think it was 17
I
actually. Yeah,
think it was 17 because I just read that chapter. When I was reading the book and I was reading it and I'm like, I think I remember that. That was a
like
one.
I'm like, wow, Arizona with their backup quarterback took the lead on the punt return And they called a block in the back that wasn't a block in the back.
Yeah,
Oh, you
exactly.
Pac-12 refs.
It's like at least you can't blame it on us, right? It's just like it's always the refs, which is like I continue to maintain that never leave it in the hands of the refs. That's why you blow everyone out of the water,
But I
right?
maintain refs are there to do a job.
They are. I agree. They are there to do something and protect the players, right? Especially in certain conditions and everything else. But like I said, I think they're there to do a job, just not impact the game.
Yeah. But even then, like if they don't throw a flag, like if there's a blatant pass interference and they don't throw a flag, like they impacted the game by not throwing a flag.
Yeah, and
You
then
know, like
then
you,
there's a makeup call the next
yeah.
play.
And they're not perfect. They're going to make mistakes, and you always notice the big mistake late. You don't notice the hold that wasn't called in the second, in the first quarter. You don't remember that one. You
Right.
remember the block in the back that wasn't, or the ineligible man downfield that wasn't. It's
And that's the other thing too. It's like again, I just don't understand why you're not seeing stuff like this in other conferences, right? And why is it still something such a disaster for us?
especially when your head of officiating has like all of 0 games experience. I think I
Isn't
saw.
that unreal? It's like he's done a couple FCS games and then was a lineman, in the 1900s.
It is like
Late
the Pac-12.
1900s.
They're trying to be a parody when it comes to officiating. They're like, we know you think we're terrible. We're gonna do something that makes us look even worse.
It's
Jokes on you for caring.
exactly. Well, it's almost like those sponsorships too. Yeah, we got Pacific Seafood, and then now we got something with the Pacific Bank. Uh,
Uh, I, I I do like the Pac-12 Network commercial with the people who are glamping. I think the guy's
okay.
like, I want to be an influencer, and
Oh God,
but I've also seen that commercial running on I think 5 years now.
it
So
is. It's like that's
you know,
like they like. I think it's Chevron or someone's like, okay, we will go ahead and renew our contract, but it's this commercial from 5 years ago, and we're going to pay you, X amount less.
I just assumed it was a thing that Chevron signed up for on the internet and just didn't read the fine print that says if you don't call us to cancel, you're still subscribing to
Yeah,
this.
exactly. We automatically renew it.
They don't even realize they're running their commercials still. They thought that ended 4 years ago.
And that because one, they don't get it in their homes, so they can't tell that it's on. And two, it's like no one else is no one else. Because I mean, I think if you watch it like in a Pac-12 string of commercials, it's like that's the only one, and then it's a bunch of Pac-12 commercials that they're hyping themselves up. It's like
That's the sign of a quality network when most of their commercials are for
for
themselves.
themselves, exactly.
Like you're already watching our channel, but here's reasons to watch our channel.
Yes, and actually other channels that we have that you may not have in your region,
Yeah.
like the mountain, the mountain region ones. Do you have them all? Do you have a Pac-12 subscription that has them all, or
I have Sling TV because it
okay,
has Pac-12 network and none of the other streaming ones had Pac-12.
right?
But I remember last year Arizona's first game it was against Hawaii. It was on like CBS Sports Network.
Oh yes,
So we had to
absolutely.
do like the free trial of that we forgot to cancel. So I started watching Picard for a little bit
Oh,
in the
exactly.
US. But then we canceled it before I could finish it. So I don't know what happened. So no one spoiled that for me. I couldn't finish it. But yeah,
Exactly.
I'm able to watch Pac-12 Network, and
Okay.
so like I'm not one of those people that worries about that. But at the same time, like back in the day when you could go out to watch a game,
Right.
it was really limiting in where
Yeah,
you could
that's
go.
true.
So, yeah.
And it's even then because, the illegal streams are getting harder and harder to find, not because people are locking down, not because networks are locking them down. It's just that fewer and fewer people are doing them. So that's the other thing too, because like,
But not that we know anything about that, though. We would never look for illegal streams. We do everything by the book.
no, I kind of I say it in the open because I think it's for me, especially in regards to Pac-12, even though it's in my footprint and it's part of my subscription, and I've been paying for it since it started, right? And it's part of my Comcast package, and I still continue to pay for it. There's still channels that like FS2. I think like what is it Cox out there that has it? I think Cox
Yeah,
that's
Cox
your
does. Yeah.
so I don't have it. So then I'll mooch that one. Right. Spectrum, no one has. So I'll mooch that one. So I mean, it's just, I mean, it's like I'm not rebroadcasting it. So that's always
There
I'm
you
just
go.
consuming. That's the
Without the
most important
express
thing.
written consent of somebody, right?
Exactly. Although I used to do that, but now I don't. So then, in the statute of limitations, because that was 10 years ago, so no one can get after me.
Remember, like you'd do a movie on HBO back when like VHS was a thing, and it'd be like, you cannot record this.
Oh,
Well, like,
yeah.
yeah, okay, who's gonna stop me? Like,
Yeah. How are you
like,
going to
there's
send someone to my house?
like when I press record on that VCR, does that send a signal? Someone's like, and there's like alarms going off, like someone's recording this video.
Exactly. Oh, there's it's like how is that supposed to? Have you ever taken apart a VHS tape? There's nothing in there telling anyone that they're recording anything. So tomorrow, I mean, obviously, two defeated teams. The rivalry is always who knows. I mean, what do you expect to see tomorrow? Right? Do we just throw it out the window and enjoy the game, or do you think the 11.5 lead is the line for 11.5 points is good, too high, too low? What do you think?
If Grant Gunnell plays, it's probably a little too high.
Okay.
But I put that on as like ASU doesn't blow anyone out. like
No.
like they just don't. Even last season, Arizona wasn't very good. It was a 10-point game that Arizona led at halftime. Like it's just not the ASU style, and it's hard to imagine unless Arizona turns the ball over a lot that ASU just
Mm,
blows them out in this game.
got it.
But that's also we don't know. I don't know enough about ASU to make what I think is a very fair prediction. But
Okay.
at the same time, I guess I have a prediction for ASU Desert Storm, and I put I think 30-17 was the final. So I sit here on your show and say that's too many, and then on a prediction in print, I said that's not
That's where you
enough.
have it.
But
Yeah.
it's such. I think, but that's I'm all over the place on this one. Just not that I think Arizona's going to win the game
Okay.
because I would not predict that. If Grant Gunnell plays, I think they have a better chance. But even if Grant Gunnell plays, if the offensive line doesn't do better, what difference does it make?
Right.
But just I don't think like I know enough about ASU, and I watched most of the UCLA game.
Hmm.
I did not watch much of the USC game. I was getting a haircut that day, and little did I know it was my first haircut since like January.
Right. Right.
And little did I know it was gonna be the last chance to watch ASU for like 5 weeks, 4
Exactly.
weeks. So like I don't think I know enough about ASU to really have a good gauge on
Okay.
how much better than Arizona they are. But just on paper and the fact that they have more than 55 scholarship players, they would have to, I
Right.
would assume they have to be better. Like but
Gotcha.
if they're as rusty and have the penalties and the turnovers and stuff like they did
Right.
last week, then Arizona will have a better chance, of course.
Absolutely. And that's always the end. I mean, it's just given the battered fan syndrome, right? That's always the thing, right? You never know what's going to happen. I think there's always going to be that. I think there's going to be some. It feels like there's going to be some back and forth, right? There's going to be ASU's going to shoot themselves in the foot. Arizona's going to take a lead. And it's just going to go back and forth from there, and then someone's going to have a heart attack, and then it'll just end up as some weird win. But I mean, for me, I don't predict scores because I don't like speaking it into existence, but I also don't know. I honestly don't know what to expect because whatever I put out there, I have no idea because
That's
it's so
weird, right?
topsy turvy.
Usually we know about these teams at least enough. Like we had Brad Denny on Wildcat Radio
Okay,
earlier in the week, and I was on Speak of the Devils. I assume he aired my portion of it. I guess I haven't gone back and
I'm
listened
still
to it,
catching up on everything.
but like it's just this game is so weird
Yeah,
because we don't know enough about either team. Like if Grant
exactly.
Gunnell plays, there's two games of work with Grant Gunnell this season, both of which were against teams that are probably better than ASU.
Yeah.
So like, does that translate? And the Grant, you guys should have beat USC also. I
Yes.
understand that, but so it's like, does that translate? Do we really know how good Grant Gunnell is? Do we know how healthy he'd be? And
Right.
if Will Plummer plays, well, they've had 2 games with him. Every rep he gets, every snap he takes, he's going to improve. He's a true freshman.
Yep.
So he should be better this week than he was last week and
Right.
better last week than he was the week before. But when it comes to ASU, just how can you know anything? You only know what you thought you knew going into the season.
Exactly.
But then I know last week after you guys lost to UCLA, there are a lot of people who were really down on the team. It's like they've played 2 games. They
I
weren't good.
know. Those are those ones that are high strung like me. You're right. It's just like it's only been the second game of the season. It's not the fourth, sixth, or seventh. And even then, you have your second game in December. So, I have to put it into check.
Like everything's just weird though. And like for
Yeah.
ASU, that's like, is this just another game? Like it's a territorial cup, and obviously you guys want to keep the cup, and for Arizona to get a win and bring the cup back,
Right.
probably getting a win matters more to them even than getting the cup just to get off the losing streak.
Exactly.
But like, are we going to look back on this no matter what happens? Like, I'll preface this saying, if Arizona wins this game, you damn well know I'm going to hold this over you guys. Like I will.
Absolutely. Yeah, as a fan, you should.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But in the grand scheme of territorial cups, like it certainly doesn't seem like anything close to what we're used to.
Absolutely.
You know, like, and for you guys, we had Brad Denny on the show, the podcast Wildcat Radio, and he's just like, for a lot of ASU people, they're happy to be playing a game.
Yeah.
Whether it's against Arizona for the cup or anyone, they just want to play football.
Right.
Like, which is not usually the attitude or perspective you take going into
Into
matchup.
this game. Exactly.
Yeah.
And again, I guess that's why I should have probably saved my investment for this game and just like, oh, okay, I can go ahead and take those losses before, right? And then it's like, okay, this is the one win I want, right? And to your point, right? I guess we're all going to play one more game next week potentially.
Maybe, like in
Yeah,
theory, yeah.
exactly. That's what they're all saying. So I guess maybe that'll be a little bit of a different for whatever else it is. But like you said, I didn't know you guys were so close, so precariously close to the limit. I mean, that's why
Good
everyone's like,
times.
yeah, because like everyone's saying, are we still playing tomorrow? I'm like, well, I don't know why we wouldn't. I thought everyone and we would be there, and then all of a sudden you're saying, yeah, we just have like we have 54 people. I'm like, you're just right there at the line. So,
Which is, I mean, that's the way it goes, right? Like Arizona's played 4 games. They have injuries that come after playing 4 games in
okay,
4 weeks.
yeah,
ASU, I don't remember hearing any injuries from the UCLA game.
not really.
Like you guys are, I would think, pretty healthy. Like,
Exactly. We're healthy
uh,
enough to mess ourselves up. So,
yeah, well, I think the timing is perfect for you guys to get enough practice reps in to lose, shake off the rust, but
right.
not have enough games in to have any nagging injuries or players out. Where meanwhile, Arizona's just like, maybe there's enough players that are good, but probably not.
It's like, okay, do you have eligibility? Come on,
uh,
suit up.
man. Like, there's a lot of guys who are earning scholarships, walk-ons, and they were
They
talking.
are.
I think it was Blackwell. He's like a sixth-year player. Just his story, like red shirt, was injured,
Wow.
got and they asked him this week if he was even thinking of coming back next year because this is a free year for everyone.
Hmm.
He's like, well, when the season started, like, nah, I wasn't playing, but he's like, but kind of looking at it, like, I'm thinking about it because he wanted the Pac-12 experience, and he doesn't feel like he's gotten that.
Okay.
Like, but that's where they're at, right? I mean, here's a guy who might come back for a seventh season of college
That's
football,
wild.
but Arizona's a lot of guys just like for all the crap we talk about, they're 0-4 for a reason. They've played hard this season.
Okay.
They don't seem to have given up on the coaching staff. Like when I say they deserve, like no matter who it is, like, I'd say they deserve to win because I want them to win the game.
Of course.
But these guys, they're going like the players who are still there, they haven't opted out, who haven't decided to transfer. The ones who are on the field,
Right.
they're really trying. They're playing
Absolutely.
really hard in these games. And I'm ASU players the same way. Like they deserve to win the game too. But the Arizona guys, like they're gonna play hard,
Right.
because they know that this is a big game. They know that it's a losing streak and they haven't won in a while. They've shown that they can compete with 3 of the 4 teams they've played this season.
Right.
They're gonna be at home. So they're gonna play really hard. And if ASU doesn't match that, if ASU has that sense of, hey, we're just happy to be on a field playing football, they might get out to a slow start, and we'll see if Arizona
Exactly.
can carry that over. But it's one thing I'd say for this Arizona team: if they lose tomorrow and they go to 0-5 and they play another game or not, if they finish with a winless season, I'll
Right.
appreciate this team for doing everything right, knock on wood, to be able to play all these games because they haven't had a COVID issue that's
Y-
cost them any games. So
Absolutely.
they've done what they had to do to be able to play football, and they've played their asses off. Like they've really played hard this season. So no matter what happens, a lot of respect to those guys for doing what
Absolutely.
they could in this crazy 2020.
I think that's a brilliant point, right? To that they did everything they needed to, especially not to have a COVID outbreak and, just completely hamstring any series of games, right? They were
Like
able to
assuming
get
that nothing comes out tomorrow, right? If
right.
all of a sudden word comes out tomorrow that there's an issue, then sorry.
But at least they were able to get the 4 games in. At least
Yeah.
they were able to get that in, which is cool because again, I don't know who else has played more in the conference. I think you're in the upper group that's actually had at least 4 games. So at least you did. And I mean, NASU's only had 2. I think Washington State's the only other team that's only had 2 games. So yeah, absolutely high respect for, and I actually told this in another interview, right? You guys kept it in your pants. ASU couldn't keep it in their pants, and then all of a sudden, look, we don't play for 4 weeks. So, absolute,
Glad everyone's okay though. It sounds like there weren't any like
right?
major. We don't know. Obviously, this is a really weird virus, and but I'm
Exactly,
glad everyone that got it seems to have recovered. You know,
exactly. And that's the interesting thing too. It's again, it seems survivable, but again, how are the lingering effects? So, but again, like I
and
said, it impacted their season.
and it's football in a pandemic. Like even the ASU players, like you can do everything right and still contract this, especially if you're around other
Yeah,
people. So it's like I don't hold it against any. I mean, there's probably some people like who slipped up on the protocols. You can
yeah,
hold it against them, and I imagine the program does to a degree. But like it's
yeah.
just the ones. I mean, they wanted to play football this season, so I found that unfortunate too. And like we're fans, we're selfish. We just want the distraction. But it's these guys who are
Exactly.
going out there and risking their health, never mind playing football and risking their health that way,
Right.
but risking their health and like their sanity, having to abide by all these protocols to play football that we can enjoy, you know? So
Exactly.
it's every player who's doing everything and getting through this. Like, I think there should be a level of appreciation because they don't have to do that.
No, they
You
didn't
know,
have
they're
to
not
at all.
here for entertainment. They're here to live their lives. And,
Exactly.
so it's been a really weird season. Obviously, both of us would like to see it end with a win for our programs.
Of course.
You know, like we'd like to win a game in 2020.
Yes,
Like someone would
exactly.
like to do
Well,
that.
hopefully, if they add that seventh game, everyone will get a shot at that. You
Well, I'll
know,
tell you what, Arizona wins tomorrow, then ASU can win their game after.
there
How's
we
that?
go. Deal.
Can we agree to that?
There.
Everyone gets a win, right? Everyone's happy.
Exact. So, do they do testing tomorrow or day? No, well, tomorrow is the day of the game,
I
so
think
that's
they
where they
do,
do the
yeah.
testing tomorrow, and they clear everyone. Yeah, John Wilner always tweets it out saying they are cleared to play or blah blah blah.
Yeah.
So that'll be it. So we'll all find out everything else is going on. So thank you, my friend. I know we're coming up at the top of the hour, and so I know you have to work tomorrow. But what do you want to promote? What do you want to plug? What are you up to, my man?
Well, biggest things and the most important thing is everybody stay safe, wear your masks, do everything we can. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. Stuff I'm working on, Wildcat Radio is the podcast. We have our preview that I think should be posting either tonight or tomorrow morning with my
Excellent.
friend Brett Barry. We've been doing that show. AZ Desert Swarm. I didn't write anything pre-game.
Okay.
Like there's probably gonna be more news after the game, one way or another. So I'll be writing
Right.
something for them this weekend, so you can find my work there or on Twitter at the Adam Green. But I can't promise you'll like any of what you
Did you
see.
get an option to actually be in stadium for this game?
Like I think we AC Desert Storm. I think does have people who will be there in the press box,
Okay.
but I'm not one of them.
Okay. So you were given that option. Okay.
No, I'm good. Like I'll be watching on TV like everyone
That's all
else.
you need.
Probably in the backyard with some good drinks to help me
Exactly.
get through it.
I have to. I think you know what it is. Mrs. Jedi, as you just did a wine run. The Cost Plus and near our house is closing, so all the wine was 70% off. So she came back with a pretty sweet case.
Well,
So
that's a win right
yeah,
there.
there was some really good stuff in there. So I'm like, okay, do I want to crack that open tomorrow, or I still have some beer left over from last week, so we'll see.
Well, the
So
line between celebratory drink and I guess what would the opposite of celebratory be? Like
sad.
sad drink is really thin. That line.
It is.
Like
Oh,
I
it
was like, I'm gonna
absolutely.
drink this if Arizona wins. It's like, oh, they lost. I need something good in my life. I guess I'll
Exactly.
drink
I'm
this.
gonna drink this some more. Well, that's the key too, right? So I mean, I've mentioned this, and I keep saying this on the show, on previous shows. If ASU ever does, I think I mentioned this actually when we were talking on Sunday. If ASU ever does a Statue of Liberty, I probably will be hungover for at least 2 days because I cannot. I just I would love to see that more than anything, but if they pull it off, man, I don't know what I'll do with myself. So here's to hoping.
That's your holy grail right there.
Here's
That's
to
like your
hoping for
great white
that.
buffalo. Like that's the one you want to see.
Exactly, exactly. But I appreciate you, my friend. I love you, and I can't. I love seeing you. So thank you so much for doing this tonight.
Yeah. Can't wait till we can do this again in person, my man. Stay
Yes,
healthy.
sir. Yes, sir.
Appreciate it.
So stay on the Zoom. We're going to talk for a little bit more, but I'm going to do a couple announcements, and then we'll go over it. But thank you, sir.
Yeah. Everyone have fun tomorrow.
Absolutely. And again, as always, we have a virtual tailgate tomorrow starting at 2 p.m. Pacific, leading up to kickoff the game at 4 Pacific, 5 Mountain Time. So if you've attended before, you'll get that invite later on tonight. If you haven't, just DM me your email address on Instagram or Twitter, and I will make sure you are added. If you don't have either one, just go ahead and shoot me an email, jediasu@gmail.com, and I'll make sure you are added to that list. So as always, make sure you join us. Wes, really appreciate you being with us the entire time. Always exciting to go see you and talk with you and everything else. But as always, everyone that's been a part of this and everyone that is watching this show, I love you. I cannot thank you enough for being part of this show. And then again, just spending some of your evening with me and my guest, Adam Green, as well. So as always, make sure you love yourself. And most importantly, nowadays, please, please love those around you. And no matter what, no matter how distant, how far apart, or what we're doing, be sure to always make sure that you stay social. Thank you, everyone, and good night. Enjoy the game tomorrow. Be safe, and we'll talk soon.